Hey, yo, everybody's dealing with something, man. Whether it's personally, in the community, around the world, something's always popping off. But there's this one spot I heard about, man, this podcast, man. I heard that they keep it 100. Let me turn this on to see if I can find it.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. It's right here, son. That's what I was telling you about.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Chosen Words, and welcome to the Just Say It podcast. Today, I'm kicking off the first ever series here on the podcast, Managing the Ships. Love, family, and friends. We're going to start it out today with Volume 1, Friend or Foe. Yeah, it's just so many people out there with people problems that it's time for us to come to a place of resolution and a place to begin to move forward in managing our relationships accordingly. So we're kicking off today, Managing the Ships, Volume 1, Friend or Foe. And as I was thinking about how to engage this, the first thing that came to my recollection was when we were all children. You know, when we were kids and we came into the presence of another child, it didn't matter their race, it didn't matter their age, it didn't matter, their background or their culture, their gender, none of that mattered. We introduced ourselves, they introduced themselves, and next thing you know, we're playing, running around on the playground, having a good time, and none of these preferential things that we have in place as adults today mattered. We accepted them for who they were. They accepted us for who we were. And we had a good time. And as a matter of fact, when the time of playing came to an end, we usually would have some form of sad emotional feeling because we didn't want to leave. But there was always hope, because if the relationship that was established was strong enough, then we may be able to see them or play with them again, or maybe your parents arrange play dates or things of that nature. So as we're discussing the friendship dynamic today, I really want you to think about on a lot of those innocent traits and qualities that even as you see children, as you go about your days, or they come across your path and you just see their innocence. Where did things go wrong for us as adults to where we have difficulties, in some cases, even making friends? I want you to think about that child, and I call it the wet cement phase, which is where you're still developing. And if you think about children only do what they've learned or what they see. And because of their innocence, they perceive it to be truth or acceptable, which is why when a child does something that is not approving of the parent, that the child may have seen or heard behind closed doors, and it's done in public, the parent's usually embarrassed, or they're they get upset with the child or anything of that nature. But I want to really focus on that today, because there's a lot of people that are dealing with people issues. There's a lot of people who are dealing with a lot of unnecessary drama, that when you begin to manage the friendship dynamic the appropriate way, a lot of those things go away. So where do these things go wrong? In a lot of cases, as I just stated, it's when we're growing up. It's when we see our parents, our relatives, or even family friends engaging one another. And since we're impressionable, we take these to be truths and apply them as we get older ourselves, thinking that this is normal. Now, it doesn't mean what you learned was wrong. It doesn't mean it was right. It means it was different. Because remember, everyone grew up in different circumstances. And we're all different. Even twins who grew up in the same environment, and I have friends that are twins, come out completely different. And the dynamics were exactly the same. So it's a matter of perception. So where, as people, individuals, do we turn from the innocent engagement of just being willing to meet someone to now having preferential friendships, so to speak, or being selective about who and or how we can engage, or for that fact, even allow into our personal space? The first thing that usually goes wrong is manipulation enters into the equation. We see someone, or we've seen someone over the years begin to manipulate a person in order to get things that they want, which changes the entire dynamic, because that person is not the true definition of a friend. And really, in order to make sure we have clarity on what a true friendship is, or for that fact, even understanding what the true definition of friendship is, we need to go back to the beginning. What does friendship mean? The emotions or conduct of friends, the state of being friends, the relationship between friends, a state of mutual trust and support between allied nations. Now, the problem that presents itself with the first thing that goes wrong is manipulation. Because when manipulation enters the equation, mutual trust is now broken. Because there's an agenda or a motive that's in play now for one party to benefit greater than the other party. And usually the manipulation, or the person that's being manipulated, is usually getting the shorter end of the stick, because they are not fully aware of what the intention of said person is. If that makes sense to you. So in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we've all encountered a manipulator. For the sake of this volume, in this series, we'll call that person a perpetrator. So you have someone who is perpetrating to be your friend, to push along their agenda or their motive to either advance themselves or get to a certain place or obtain a certain thing by way of using you or manipulating you to get what they're needing out of the equation, which breaks the mutual trust that you establish as a friend. The appropriate way that we should engage each other from the friendship dynamic is if there's something that you're needing, and this is truly your friend, you should be able to have a conversation with that person and respect their decision. If they say yes, they're willing to assist you, cool. Two are better than one. Let's go ahead and move forward and get this done for you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you prosper. I want to see you excel in whatever it is that you're wanting to do as a friend. If they say no, that's cool too. And you have to be okay with that. Because you don't understand, or maybe you're presenting something to them at a time in which they just don't have either the availability or the capacity to take that on in their life right now to help you get to that place that you're wanting or desiring to be, or even getting that goal accomplished, or whatever the case may be. If they say no, that's okay. That doesn't not make them your friend. That just means that presently they're unavailable to help you with whatever it is you're needing to get done. The second thing that usually comes into play here is controlling and or dominating. Now, completely different than manipulation. You have some people out there that feel that they have to be the superior or the alpha, so to speak, in today's terminology. They have to be the alpha of the group, and they have to control every aspect of their friend's being, or they have to dominate every arena or atmosphere that they're in, which usually points to an issue of either well, I'll just say it this way. They're lacking something somewhere in their person. Because there's too many things just to go down a list, and I don't want to leave anything out for anyone that's listening. But just understand, if someone's having to control or dominate, the main indicator usually points back to either is A, they have trust issues and have to control everything, or B, they've been hurt, and if they're not in control, then they panic and freak out. So the safest place for this type of person is knowing that if I always have control, then things will always go in the direction that I'm needing it to go to ensure that I'm safe. And that's a problem from the friendship dynamic, again, because we're talking about mutual trust and mutual support. We're talking about a relationship between two individuals. So when we go into this, I'm not going into it saying I'm going to be your subordinate. We're mutuals. If we're friends, we're mutuals. Now, there may be some instances where, you're taking the lead today and I'm taking the lead tomorrow. That just means we're submitting ourselves one to another, and that's okay. We're still friends. We're still mutual. But what I'm relating to presently is someone who always has to be in control. Someone who always has to be dominant. Someone who, if they're not in control, they're completely uncomfortable with the entire ordeal. And they usually want to opt out. Nope. If it doesn't go my way is the highway. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take my ball and go home. Which, even if we relate back to in being a child, we've seen this happen before, but it's a learned behavior. if I take what I have, which if I'm thinking about a child here, as I just related to, you would think of a game of basketball, and the person brought the ball and they were fouled, or they called something and it didn't go their way, and there was a dispute, which I want to clarify right here while it's fresh on my mind. Arguing is not bad. The stereotype on that whole connotation is wrong. Arguing just simply means you have two thinking people from two different backgrounds or dynamic that are trying to convey and get their point across as to why they're right, which means they both have a vested interest in the conversation, or you would not be exhausting your time or energy arguing about something that you don't even care about. So let's dispel that right now while we're here. So you have someone who's contesting or disputing, or they're arguing, and the person who has brought something that would be beneficial to everyone, because it is not going in their way, they're going to now take their ball and go home. Controlling. Dominating. So if you do that, game is over. Now, what usually would happen in some situations is, as soon as they were getting ready to leave, somebody else would bring a ball and the game would keep going. Nobody cared if they left because things were back on course. But that person, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, now has to make a decision. Me taking my ball and going home doesn't apply anymore, because now there's another ball. And this person doesn't care. They're just wanting to be here and play. Which is what we're talking about here, and going back to the innocence of friendship, the mutual relationship, the mutual trust, the mutual support, the dynamic between people who says, hey, I just want to hang out with you and we can chill, or we can do this, that, or whatever. And nobody means anybody harm. But the person who wants to take their ball and go home, now they've lost their power. So now they have to make a decision. Do I stay and play now, or do I go home? If they stay and play, they put their foot in their mouth and have by default stated that, hey, you were right, I've lost the argument. Or B, they go home and they're not quite feeling that sense of power or control or dominance, and they're having to now, do some internal thinking or some deep introspection, or come up with some new methodologies as to how, they're going to get their sense of power or control back. Which, if it takes you to do all of that thinking and investing that much energy as to how you're going to control people or how you're going to dominate people, you got a problem. When you see these indicators in people, that should be a red flag. Now, most people see these things and they make an excuse and they say, oh, it's whatever, and run headlong into it anyway. And when the person has showed you their colors or who they are, and you don't believe them, that's when you tend to get hurt. So there's an old saying that says, when a zebra shows you its stripes, believe them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. If you have someone in your life that consistently is talking about someone, or when you're around them, they're this, oh girl, this, that, or man, let me tell you something about, your homeboy, so on and so forth. let me share something with you. If they're doing that with you, if you don't recognize from the beginning that it's only a matter of time before you're next on their list to be talked about, you're crazy. You see, there's another old adage or saying that says, when a dog brings a bone, he also takes one. Which means that if they're bringing you all of this gossip, and that's the word, so to speak, if they're bringing you this gossip or bringing you, girl or whatever, they're going to take something back because in your frame of thinking, this is a mutual relationship. So even if you're not a person to talk about people, but you have people in your environment that talk about people and relate to other people's issues, I really want you to take a second and think about that. And maybe someone's coming to your mind and you can just go ahead and start writing those names down, because this is really a dynamic or relationship that you're probably going to look at a little bit closer, simply because friendship requires mutual trust. So if this person has invested in this person, trusting them that, hey, I'm talking to you as a friend and I'm needing your advice or your input on something, so I'm going to share a piece of myself with you, and I'm trusting you as my friend that it won't go beyond our conversation. Well, trust has been broken now because they're bringing it to you, which means if they've broken one trust dynamic in a friendship relationship paradigm, it's only a matter of time before it happens to you. So don't ever think you're the exception to the rule when you're in the midst of gossip. It's only a matter of time before the gossiper makes you the new topic of their gossip. So that is something that you really want to evaluate before it gets too far, or before you end up being hurt by something that's said or someone who's already showing you they do not have the capacity to be a friend. Just ponder on that for a minute, because everybody you call friend isn't really a friend. And that's why we're talking about managing these relational dynamics that are in our life. Some people are just associates. And if they're an associate, that's fine. But you have to identify who are your real friends and who are my associates. And once you have those titles, so to speak, in place properly, then you know how to engage and or manage people. The other thing that I'd like to bring before you today, and I'd like for you to begin to just ponder on and think about this. You hear people say all the time, oh, it's always this drama, this, that, everywhere, drama here, drama there, blah, blah, blah. Let's stop shaking these tea leaves off the tree and let's start really asking some honest questions here. Why is it everywhere you go, there's drama? If everywhere you go, there's drama, that's a problem. Now, you'll hear about, I'm just going to say 100% of people always say they don't like drama. And I believe that for the most part, because no one wants to be in the midst of something that will, cause your emotions to stir and feelings to rise and irrational thinking and all other types of things that can unfold in the midst of drama. So I believe no one really wants drama. Now, there are some people who just thrive on it. and they have their moments. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to say I believe no one wants drama. Even though we know that's not necessarily true. But if everywhere this person goes, there's drama, I want you to really, just like we did before, about the person that we've labeled the gossiper, we'll label this person the actor or actress, since we're talking about drama. Wherever you go, there you are. Which means if everywhere you go there's drama, the only common denominator in all of those places is you. If there was no drama before you got there, and now drama is there because you're there, then you're the problem. Which means there's another issue in the friendship dynamic, because this is mutual. Will there be friction between friends? Absolutely. Because we're all not going to agree on everything 100% of the time. That's what makes us individuals. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us different. Yes, we're going to have some things that we share in common, but there's just going to be some things that you do that I don't do. And that's cool. But if I have a problem with something that you like, that I don't like, then that's not your problem. That's my problem. And that's where, as a mature adult, I have to be willing to allow you to be different than me if I'm truly going to call you my friend. And that goes back to what I was just speaking on earlier as far as that control, the manipulation, the dominating, the user, the abuser. All of these things that, put a wrinkle in something that was innocent or damages the fabric of something that was genuine because one person wants to have a leg up or begin to use it for their own personal gain. So again, remember, and I really want you to think about this. Wherever you go, there you are. When you show up, what happens? Everywhere you show up, what happens? So just remember, when you meet somebody or you see someone and you're like, you know what? That person seems pretty cool, whether it's the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, whatever it may be. Remember, it's the uniqueness that's in that person that draws you to them. And when you start trying to make someone other than what they are, or change them, then they're no longer themselves. So allow people to be people. Let them be who they are. Remember from the very beginning what drew you to them and made them want to be, or made you want to be their friend. And whatever differences you guys have or may have between one another, that's okay. That's what makes them them, and that's what makes you you. So I just want to go over a few different things here and expound on them as to what really makes you a good friend. And when you see something that we've just previously discussed, really begin to inspect those things within yourself and make an honest, in some cases, a tough or difficult decision. Not everyone is going to be good for you in your life. And even though there may be history, it may be time to cut some things off so that you can continue to grow. Again, no one said it's going to be easy, but it's necessary. So, what are the qualities of a good friend? Number one, it's someone that you support. You can trust them. They're honest. And their honesties are givens. In today's world, there's a phrase that's called, you're being a hater, or you being a hater. Well, even with that dynamic, let's really take a look at that, because, if you ask me a question and I'm your friend, even if you ask me a question and I'm a stranger, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Because you're coming to me for support. And you're trusting that I'm going to be honest with you in my response, which is what I was just saying in key number one. Support, trust, and honesty are givens. So these are traits that you should look for in someone that's a friend. Regardless of how you feel about what they're saying, you should know without a shadow of a doubt, this person is telling me this because they love me, or they like me, or they care about me. People who always love, like, or care about you will always tell you the honest truth, regardless of how you feel about it. So if you ask me as a friend, or you ask me as a stranger, I'm going to tell you the truth from my perspective. It doesn't make me a hater. It just means that you came to me asking for my honest opinion. And I'm telling you, that doesn't look good. Now, if you still want to go outside looking like that, that's up to you. But as a friend, someone who either loves, likes, or cares about you, I'm telling you, you need to switch it up. But in today's world, we label these types of people as haters, when in all actuality, the person who really has your best interests in mind will always tell you the truth, regardless of how you feel. The second key or trait is you listen to your friends. If your friend comes to you with a situation or problem, you become the soundboard. What's going on? Again, if someone really has a genuine interest in making sure you're whole, you're on the right track, you're prospering, you're excelling, you're moving towards whatever it is that you're aspiring to do, that person's going to be supportive of you. And if you're dealing with something, they're going to take the time out to listen to what you have to say. Now, on the other side of that, as a friend, you have to be willing to understand that if this person is willing to give you their time and hear what you have to say, then as a friend, you have to take their response, their honesty, for what it is, and not get upset or offended about it or start feeling some kind of way. Because if this person is vesting their time, which is the only thing in this world you can never get back, your time. If they're giving that to you, if they're giving you an honest answer based on what you just expressed to them, you have a decision to make. But don't get in your feelings and calling them anything other than a friend when they're telling you the truth about what you just shared. The third trait that makes a good friend is ditching judgment. And that kind of ties back into what I was just stating a moment ago. Friends let friends be friends. You know, if I have an issue with someone and or my friend is friends with that person, then that doesn't mean that you're not my friend, right? What it makes me is immature, because if I have an issue with someone, I should be able to go to them and, air out whatever it is that I perceive my difference is. And, we either resolve it or we agree to disagree, which is completely okay. And that be that. But if my friends have friends that I don't have as friends, that doesn't make them not my friends. Because if I have to control who they're engaged with, that means that I'm a controller and a manipulator. I'm not a friend, and I've broken the friendship paradigm. If my friend does something that I don't do, or anything along those lines, there's no place for me to be judgmental. I might have some differences in things that I do that they don't do. So it comes back again to allowing that person to be that person. And as you continue to build on your friendship, you're going to continue to find that, you know what? Hey, you might like to run 5 miles. I'm not that person. I'll get on the treadmill and maybe do a half a mile or a mile, but you want to run 5, do what you do. As long as you're happy doing it, that's what counts. Number 4, key trait, don't talk behind a friend's back. And that's exactly what we were just talking about not long ago. If someone is coming to you and confiding in you with something that is sensitive, then they consider you a friend. And they're trusting based on the friendship dynamic that whatever it is that you two are conversing on, it will not leave that conversation. At that point, it becomes confidential. The moment you begin to share something that someone came to you as a friend in confidentiality, saying, hey, girl, boy, whatever, guess what such and such told me, you've now become the gossiper and you're no longer a friend. So if this is you, really begin to evaluate yourself and what quality or kind of friend that you really have been, are still going to be, or change to the friend that you should be. Key trait number 5, respect your friends and their boundaries. Now, this is very important. Now, because we're friends doesn't mean that I can always just run up on you and do whatever I want to do because I'm your friend. People have boundaries. Your friends have boundaries. Respect their boundaries, right? And this is something as a friend you should know first as an adult. You teach people how to treat you. And that's where a lot of people are getting into trouble today, is because they're allowing people to invade spaces, or as the old term would say, you're letting people into your bubble and you're not showing them where your lines of boundary are and preventing them from entering those spaces. Now, there are some people that you may allow to come into those spaces, and those people know who they are in your life. But that doesn't mean that everyone has access to those places, which means you have to draw plumb lines of delineation, boundaries, as to where people stop. That includes family, and we'll get to that in the volume as it relates to family. But today we're talking about friends. Respect your friends and their boundaries. If they tell you, listen, hey, I don't want to talk about it, leave it alone. Eventually at some point they may come back to you and have that conversation. But if they never do, it's okay. You leave it alone. Respect their boundaries. Now, here's something that I really want to share with all of you who are listening today is this. People who don't respect your boundaries don't have boundaries, which means they're always going to do what they want to do. If a person does not have boundaries, you cannot expect that person to respect your boundaries, which means you need to have a serious moment in thinking, do I really want this person in my life? Do I really want them as my friend? Because if I accept them as my friend, every time they come around, I already know I'm going to have an issue with them because they're going to encroach on something, or they're going to do something that I know I already don't like, and I'm going to start feeling some kind of way about it. So I'm really encouraging you, and if you're taking notes, I definitely will have you put multiple asterisk, stars, whatever symbol you're wanting to utilize. If people don't have boundaries, they will not respect yours. And a lot of the times we get frustrated is we're placing expectations on people that don't have it in them to give it to you. So it's almost like asking a dog to meow or a cat to bark. When you see someone that does not have the ability to do something that you are wanting or expecting them to do, understand that you're not going to get it from them. So sometimes in the friendship dynamic, we've allowed someone to come into our personal space and we've called them a friend, and they've done something and we want an apology, or we want, certain things to occur or transpire. And you sometimes have to understand that that person may not have it in them to give it to you. So you're placing a demand on something or someone for something that they'll never be able to provide until they grow. So it's just like you walking up to a dog and say, meow, or you walking up to a cat and say, bark for me, boy, bark for me, girl. It'll never happen. So begin to really, really learn people. Right? There's typically 7 personality types in the world you'll ever come across. But when you begin to understand the type of person that you're dealing with, now you know how to engage them. It doesn't mean that the intangibles and nuances of that person are the same. They'll never be the same. They'll be different. But you do find similarities in people that you have within yourself. But I'm just encouraging you today that stop placing demands on people that they just can't meet. Stop putting expectations on people that they just will never be able to accomplish or provide to you, because you're only going to frustrate yourself. All right. And last but not least, key or trait number 6 would be forgive where you can and seek forgiveness when you screw up. In most cases, in a lot of these instances, pride steps up or stubbornness steps up. Pride is more of a male dynamic. Stubbornness is more of a female dynamic. They're two sides of the same coin, but still the same coin. But if you mess up, you jack up, whatever the case may be man enough, be woman enough, be adult enough, be mature enough to say, hey, listen, you know what? I really valued you as a friend, and, you trusted me with X, Y, Z, or whatever the case may be. And I really jacked up, and I violated the mutual trust of our friendship, or whatever occurred, whatever it may have been, and I apologize. I understand if, you don't want me to be your friend, or, you don't want to engage in any form of a relationship with me again. But I just wanted to be honest, and frank, saying, hey, I know I jacked up. I realize I messed up, but you were a friend to me, and I wasn't a good friend to you. But if you give me the chance, then I can show you that I can be that friend that I know and I can be. And if they mess up, you give them that same courtesy. It doesn't mean that you have to allow them, back into that space completely. Some people you have to love from across the street. You can still love them, but you just understand from that previous encounter that it's just not going to be what you initially thought it was because of their level of maturity and or, their ability or capacity to handle you as a friend. So again, I thank you very much for joining me today as we have kicked off the first series here on the Just Say It podcast, Love, Family, and Friends. The first series of the volume, or the first volume of the series, Friend or Foe. While I'm thinking about it, you really don't have any enemies. I labeled this friend or foe because you only have enemies in your mind because you've labeled them as an enemy in your mind, which makes them a foe. And it's a lot of the intangibles that we discussed today, the differences and the nuances of people being different from you and not being you or exactly like you that makes us want to make them an outcast. So just embrace people where they are, have a good time, live your life, let them live their life, and keep moving forward. Life's too short. Enjoy the moment. There's only a handful of big ones and they are flash in the pan. Until next time, Chosen Words is out. Shut it down.
This is the moment for those who